Hi guys, this is SDJRSNF88 speaking with another update on my World War One trench railway, Amiens 1918. So one of the biggest changes since the previous update is of course the upgraded track work in the Fiddle yard. Now I touched upon this at the end of the last update, and basically what I said I was going to do was to add an extra passing loop in, and as you can see I finally got round to doing it. It was a rather simple task. What I had to do was lift the two sidings that already existed here. So as you can see there was originally a siding that curved round to there, that has now gone. And what I then did was lifted the inner passing loop so I could gain access to the section of track there. I then removed a small straight and inserted a left-hand pair of set points. This then connected onto what was originally a siding, creating this third passing loop here. I then had a bit of spare track left over, and of course with the other siding removed, it meant I could then extend the remaining siding to store a larger train. Now in theory, this will hopefully improve the operation of the layout tenfold, basically because it means that I can have 4 sets constantly running on the layout rather than 3. So I can have 2 trains parked out here, 2 parked at the front, then one could come in from the front into the remaining empty passing loop, so say the new one I've just put in. I could then drive one of the ones out of the existing passing loop out to the front, and then vice versa, and there'll always be one passing loop free. And then of course I've got the 2 remaining sidings, this including this little one down here, where I could store a replacement locomotive or extra wagons if need be. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how this turned out. It took about an hour or so to do. So yeah, all in all, I'm really pleased with the results, and hopefully this will improve the running of the layout and means I can store more stock. So you now join me looking at the stock box for the layout. Now this is just some of the rolling stock on the layout. This box contains mainly the locomotives and the majority of the bogie wagons that you see running on Amiens 1918. And basically what I've gone and done is, after all the shows that the layout's been to over the past couple of months, I've finally got round to actually flipping the locos over and giving them a good wheel clean and an oil and a general service. So as you can see here, we got the Baldwin with the sound chip, the Digitrain sound chip, just to the left there. Next to it we have the Decauville, then we have the Mini Trains 262 Baldwin. We then have the kit-built, armour-plated or protected Simplex, and I finally got round to attaching the chassis to that one, so that one has now entered the stock box. And then just to the bottom left here of the shot, you can see we have the French Schneider Loco Tractor. And again, this has also been cleaned and serviced as well. Now you probably have spotted that there is one locomotive missing from this count, and it is of course the Mini Trains Brigade Lock, which is my captured German locomotive. Now sadly I've had a little accident with that locomotive, which I'll explain now. So what happened to the Brigade Lock? Like the other locomotives, I basically just started servicing it. So I basically turned it over, I cleaned the wheels, I oiled the gears, and one thing I've been meaning to do with this loco is investigate why it wasn't running as well as some of the others. Some of you may have noticed or commented upon while I was at recent shows, and you saw this locomotive running in the flesh. You may have caught me mentioning that I wasn't happy with how it was running and why it was occasionally stalling. Now the reason for this is some dirt had gotten right up into the pickups on one side of the locomotive. So if I just gently turn the loco over, hopefully I won't get my fingers in the way. But there are 8 brass contacts connecting to each of the top of the wheels. So they're right at the far top of each of the 8 drivers. So the only way to sort of access them, because this locomotive is an inside frame locomotive, much like the Schneider, is to actually remove the body and hopefully gain access to the pickups from the top, because they are right at the far top of this frame. Now, I've done the same on my Decauville locomotive, which was an outside frame locomotive, and I made the mistake of popping off the bottom plate, which, if I turn this loco over quickly, you'll see there is a vast variety of gears in there, or there's slightly less gears in there at the moment, which I'll get onto in a second. Now, basically, these locomotives are highly sprung with these gears, and I made the mistake with the Decauville to pop this plate off, and basically all the gears popped out. So I was adamant I wasn't going to make the same mistake with this one. So I basically started researching on how to open up the locomotive just to basically remove the body rather than removing the base plate. And one thing that is a bit annoying about Mini Trains locomotives, it's not really so much of a complaint, isn't really any good guidance on how to get these locomotives open. But I found a forum on the internet, and basically it said to simply remove the body, you basically unscrew the funnel. So basically the funnel is a giant screw which holds the body on. I removed the screw and gave the body a little lift, and it wouldn't budge. So I presume that there was another screw at the back holding the rear of the cab on. Now, I then removed a screw on the bottom of the locomotive, and nothing moved. To which I then made the mistake of removing a second screw on the bottom. Of course, what happened was the base plate popped off, and about 7 or 8 gears came popping out onto the table. Now, to give you an idea, these gears are less than a millimetre in height. They are really, really tiny, and they have 2 little washers on either side of them. And to get them all back in the locomotive and line up with all of the gears on the drive axles is an absolute nightmare. And to make matters worse, when I finally figured out how to get the boiler off, it was actually, there is a lug on the inside of the boiler itself that you cannot see, and basically what you have to do is you really have to give the boiler some force to remove it, which of course, if you're unsure on how these things actually open, it really does feel like there's a screw in there. So I didn't want to tug on it too hard, but it turns out you really do need to give it a good tug, and it actually does then come off. Another issue is with this is the headlamp, and I believe there's also a tail lamp as well, is wired to the chassis. So there's a little bit of wire once you finally separated the two. Now, of course, trying to get all these gears back in and line them all up, it took quite a while to try and do this, only to find that the quartering was out and the engine would not move. Basically, it was jamming. And as you can imagine, this was getting rather frustrating at the time. And while I was testing this, because the quartering was jamming, it then broke one of the little pins that holds on the rod on the side, and you can see there's a little pin, we can't see it, it's just out of shot there behind the valve gear, but as well the pins that connects the rod to the drive wheel also sheared off because of the quartering on a little test run. And yeah, so as you can imagine, that was a bit more annoying as well. And then to make matters worse, when I finally managed to get the base plate back on again, the 2 flimsy little wires that connect the headlamp to the chassis then broke. And yeah, that was really sort of the last straw. I then decided just to put the model back together. I put all the gears in a little box, and I've basically just left it. And I had a chat on a number of the forums for WW1. There's a number of great pages on Facebook, including the WW1 modelers page. And they were very, very friendly and supportive about what's happened, and explained that a number of them had the same issue with the Mini Trains locomotive gears. And basically, word of the wise is, if you're going to just don't take the base plate off, because if you do, all hell breaks loose. So yeah, they were very, very supportive about the accident. A few of them offered to fix it, but when I'm in the right frame of mind, I'm going to try and give it another go. But basically, from the sounds of it, it's a bit of like a 1 in a million chance that you'll be able to get them all back in and all of them to line up correctly, that the locomotive will ever run again. So I basically managed to source a replacement regard lock, which is on the way, and basically it will need to be weathered up like this one, which is, you know, again, it's money and time I didn't really want to spend, but this locomotive does really turn heads at shows, and there's an interesting bit of history behind this particular locomotive as to why it's running on Amiens, as there is photographic evidence of the British using these once they were captured from the Germans. So I really want one on the layout just to run around. But for now, this was going to be a static exhibit until I get round to fixing it. So possibly you might see it sitting in the siding on Amiens, or alternatively, you might even see it running on the back of one of my ROD supply trains, as if it's just been captured, it's being taken back to the workshop to be repaired. So yeah, all in all, a bit upsetting, but as I mentioned, there is a replacement, and potentially not all hope is lost for this little loco, but yeah, you never know. So I guess that's all for this update. A bit of excitement and of course a bit of disappointment at the same time regarding the Brigade lock. But I guess if I take my time and sort of sit down and have a closer look at it and examine how the gears all line up and see if I can get them quartered, I'll possibly be able to get her running again. This is something that will of course take a lot of time. But as mentioned, I have got a replacement waiting in the wings that just needs weathering up, and hopefully that will be in action on the layout in the meantime. So, things to come. We, of course, have a number of shows. We're now coming into sort of a large chunk of shows for the layout. Coming up this weekend, we have the Corsham Model Railway Exhibition, or TRAINWEST. Now, this is a superb show, well worth a visit. There's a number of other YouTubers there displaying their layouts, including Laurie Calvert with his amazing sci-fi layout, Cato Pass. So that one is well worth a visit. A bit further on into the future, we then have the Bristol Model Railway Exhibition, or Bristol Rail X, held at the Thornbury Leisure Centre. Now, this is going to be one of Amiens' biggest outings to date. It's a 3-day show. I've never done a 3-day show before, so it'll be interesting to see how I get on with that. And that is on the Friday, Saturday and Sunday over the May bank holiday weekend, I believe. And then a bit further on in the future, we also have the East Anglian Model Railway Exhibition, which is held in Kettering, I believe. Now, this is another quite long distance show for the layout, so I'm really looking forward to that one, and hopefully seeing some of you guys there. So I guess that's all for this update, and all that's left for me to say is this has been SDJRSNF88 speaking, and thanks for watching.